Hi, I'm Juno.
And I'm Daniel.
And this is how to play our game, Isle of Feathers. For those of you who've got a copy of our game already, we are closely following the teach contained in our instruction manual. So follow along and we hope you enjoy.
Isle of Feathers is a competitive tile laying game about building a beautiful island together out of wooden tiles, then filling it with weird and wonderful birds. Every bird in the game is unique, and you want to build an island habitat that suits your birds perfectly. However, everyone else is trying to do exactly the same thing, so you'll have to jostle for position, build off each other's moves, and adapt to the changing island to get your birds on the table before the tiles run out. When the last sand tile is placed, the island is complete and the game is over. Every bird you place scores you points, and whoever has the most at the end is the winner. And most importantly, every time you add a bird to the island, make up a fun fact about the species and deliver it to the table in your best nature documentarian's impression. So that's Isle of Feathers. First I'll cover how to unbox the game, then we'll talk through the rules. Alright, let's talk through what you do on your turn. So, on your turn, you perform 2 actions, then pass a card from your hand to the next player. What this means is when it's your turn, you'll have 5 cards in your hand, and the rest of the time, you'll only have 4. There's always 1 new card going around in circulation. So, you perform 2 actions, then pass a card, and there are 4 options to choose from. You can add a land tile to the island to expand the island. You can pick up a vegetation token and plant trees on the island. This is the important one. You can play a bird card from your hand to add a species to the island and score points. And you can discard a card from your hand to fire off that bird's special ability to change the island in ways you normally wouldn't be able to. So, 2 actions, then pass a card. You can choose the actions in any order, and you can choose the same type of action twice. Alright, let's talk building. These are our land tiles, and they come in 3 types. You have sand, you have grass, these are double-sided, and cliff. The flat table is our ocean, and we place and stack tiles to build up our island. Sand tiles are nice and straightforward. They go flat anywhere on the table that is directly connected to another tile. You just can't have them free floating in the ocean. They've always got to be connected. Grass and cliff tiles are for stacking, but in order to stack a tile, you need to make sure that it is supported. Think of building little hills. In order to build a grass tile, I need to find a spot that has 2 or more neighbouring sand tiles, or another grass tile that someone has placed previously. So I can place this grass tile here because it has 2 neighbouring sand tiles, but I cannot place it here as it only has 1 neighbouring sand tile. Now, if I were to take my second action to build again, I now can add this grass tile here because it has a neighbouring grass tile that's been placed previously. Cliff tiles are just like grass tiles but 1 level higher. You can place a cliff tile on anywhere with 2 or more neighbouring grass tiles or another cliff tile that someone has placed previously. So, that's building. Sand tiles go flat on the table and grass and cliff are for stacking. Let's talk vegetation. Vegetation tokens are nice and simple. You pick up a token here and place it on a tile to plant trees there. You can only place 1 vegetation token per tile, and once you place a tree there, the roots lock in and that elevation becomes fixed. You can't then dump more soil on top. So that's how you lock an elevation in place. So that's building. You stack and place tiles to make land, and you place tokens on top to plant vegetation. Let's talk birds. These are our bird cards, and these are the different species that you want to introduce to the island to score points. Every one of these bird cards is unique, and each bird has their own habitat. For example, let's take the horned screamer. See this diagram here? Every bird card has a diagram like this, and this is the bird's habitat. In order to place this card, I need to find a spot on the island that matches this diagram exactly. The habitat can be rotated in any orientation or mirrored like a chess piece, but its contents has to match exactly, and this includes the presence or absence of trees. Let's pretend we've been playing for a couple of turns and our island looks like this. I want to find a habitat that matches this bird's diagram. You can see here there is an empty sand tile with no trees. Next to it is a sand tile with trees, and above it is a grass tile, and below it is an empty space of water. If I find a spot like this, I can play this on my turn. So I can take one of my actions to place the card in front of me and say, I am playing this horned screamer. I pick up a meeple of my colour, place it on a tile to claim it, and then I will score 4 points at the end of the game. So I place the card down, I pick up a matching ability token, which I'll cover in a second, place this here for later, and I will now score that many points at the end of the game. Much like placing trees, you cannot have more than one bird in one space, and you cannot dump topsoil on top of a bird once it's placed. And even if the island changes after the fact, these points are secure. So that's how you play a bird. Now, I've just played a bird from my hand, so I only have 4 cards left in my hand. I need 5. To get a new card, I pull one from the flight path. The flight path is the birds that are flying in, visiting our island, staying a while, and then flying away into the discard pile if they can't find a spot. To grab a new card, you can grab any of the face-up cards or blind from the top of the deck. Let's say I want to grab the intermediate egret, and I add it to my hand, so I now have 5 cards. The card in last place then flies away into the discard pile, and the other cards slide up to fill the spots. Imagine like a conveyor belt, so there's always new cards flying to the island, staying a while, and there's always new birds in circulation. Let's talk special abilities. When I just placed a bird here, I picked up one of these ability tokens and placed it on the card for later. These are our special abilities. You can spend these tokens on your turn like currency to fire off special abilities to let you manipulate the board state in ways you normally wouldn't be able to. You can do things like instantly add or remove a tile, even if it breaks the stacking rules. You can pick up a tree that someone's placed and move it somewhere else, or shoo a bird away to an adjacent tile, or even place a bird in a spot that's already occupied. Once you spend this token to fire off the ability, it's gone and you need to place more birds to get more ability tokens. However, spending these tokens does not use one of your actions, so if you get a couple of them together, you can fire them all off at once and combo together a big complex move to place birds you otherwise wouldn't be able to. This brings us to our final action type. You can spend an action to instantly discard a card from your hand instead of placing it to fire off that bird's special ability immediately. So I could use one of my actions to discard the invisible rail to fire off the uproot ability, which lets me pick up an already planted tree and move it somewhere else. And once you discard a card, much like placing a bird, you grab a new card so that you have 5 in your hand. Now, abilities in Isle of Feathers are actually very useful because they let you manipulate the board state in ways you otherwise wouldn't be able to. So, if you're ever looking at your hand and say, I can't place any of these cards, look through the abilities that these cards have and see if there's a card that you can discard instead to fire off its ability, and you'll usually be able to unstick yourself. Abilities are what you can use to pull off some really complex moves later in the game. And finally, this brings us to the most important part of the game, bird facts. When you add a bird to the island, you're encouraged to make up a fun fact about the species and deliver it to the table in your best nature documentarian's impression. The less accurate, the better. For example, I could say, the horned screamer has holes in its hollow bones that makes a disturbing rattling sound when it takes flight. Alternatively, I could say, the smoky bush tyrant's favourite pastime is stealing candy from children. The bird facts are not mandatory, we find it adds a lot of fun to the game experience. Let's talk winning the game. When the last sand tile is placed and added to the island, or a player places their last meeple, the end game is triggered. The player that triggers the end game, that's their final turn. Every other player has one more go to finish off their game. Then the island is complete. You add up the points for every bird that you've placed, and whoever has the most points at the end is the winner. And you don't score any points or unspent tokens, so use your abilities whilst you've got them. So that's how you play Isle of Feathers.
Thank you again for all of your support. If you want to find out a bit more about our game, you can check us out on Blue Sky or Instagram or on our website.
Thanks again. Perfect.